Okay, there we go. We're started.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. It is May 2nd as we're recording this. Again, I don't know how many of these we've done, but that doesn't matter. Thanks for tuning in. How you doing, Mitch?
I think I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Great.
It's my weekend. Um,
Yeah,
and
nice.
bumming
Yeah, I'm
around.
on. I'm off. I got to work tomorrow, but I'm off today. Hey,
Uh,
so I sent you that link to the video. Where I forget who it was, but somebody on YouTube they posed the question like, "Hey, do we even need aftermarket pickups?" Right? And the
right.
argument was, and I thought this was very interesting. The argument was like, "Hey, pickup technology has not changed, and everybody, or at least not significantly." Everybody wants the same pickups that people were making in the 40s and 50s and 60s, right? And the design for the original, like even the humbucker dates back to like, I forget when, like the 50s, it's like it actually goes back pretty far, right? So and then he's like, well, people have taken pickups apart so much that they know the kind of magnet and the amount of windings and the wire gauge, so you can pretty much estimate it. You can make like your 57 patent applied for humbucker, or whatever it is, right? Um, and then he's also saying like at the time that those pickups came out, or that people first started making aftermarket pickups, there wasn't a lot of tone shaping available. So there was not a lot of range in amplifiers. There was not a lot of choice in guitar pickups. You were just stuck with whatever the factory gave you. And there were not a lot of guitar pedals. And now there's tons of pedals. You have a ton of pickup choices. People have engineered those pickup choices to make them sound as good as possible, like, or a lot better than what they used to sound like, right from the
Mhm.
factory. And then amps are also like a lot more advanced these days, right? They have a lot more features and things in them, right? um and they're also tuned up. So I mean, do you really need an aftermarket pickup? What do you think?
Well, I don't really understand the question because if you don't have aftermarket pickups, you're assuming that you are getting the pickups that you want right from the manufacturer of your guitar. And I think if you buy like a Squire or something like that, you definitely want an aftermarket pickup.
Well, I mean, are you sure? I mean, think about it this way, like let's imagine you had a Squire and you're just plugging directly into your amp and you're like, yeah, that sounds kind of weak. But now you can have a pedal in between, right? So, there's a lot of tone shaping there. A lot of amps now have a lot more options. So maybe, you could adjust the amp to make up for a weak pickup. And maybe the weak pickups, the cheap pickups these days are a lot better than cheap pickups used to be back when.
Oh, I think that's absolutely the case. Um, but I found myself swapping out pickups on a single guitar where um, like I've put the same guitar together a few different ways, looking for that um, the right pickup for the sound that I want. And like my guitars are all kind of expendable. I can make mods freely because they're not valuable to collectors or anything like that. Um,
So you're saying there is a room for the aftermarket pickup.
Absolutely, and through my experimentation, I found some pretty cool pickups that I kind of keep returning to.
Yeah. So I mean, like nowadays there's a lot of cheap pickups that I feel like probably sound pretty good compared to a lot of expensive pickups. And
Yes,
expensive pickups are like really expensive. Like surprisingly, like there's a range, like your cheap pickups that are pretty good these days can be in like the 30 to $50 range,
hmm
right? And then like your name brand high-end pickups, like even that aren't super high-end, right? But medium high-end are like $100 to $200,
right.
right? And then you can get into these super high-end ones that like $600-700, right? Like where where does that come from? Like, why is there such a gap like that?
Yeah, well, I think some of it's a lot like people. I'll probably get in trouble for this, but like for people who buy wine, and they spend like $1,500 for a bottle of wine. Um, and in my opinion, you taste the money. You don't taste the difference in the actual wine.
We need more pickup blind, you know, auditions, right? You know?
Yeah. Um, I suspect that there are some people who will say that they can tell the difference between like a $150 pickup and one that costs like $450. But I think it's also, people kind of like bragging rights. Like, oh yeah, I got this super boutique thing,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah,
don't,
nobody else has one, or at least your friends that can't afford it don't have one, right?
right?
You know? So that brings us to the next question, because one of the things that came up in the article was that besides like, do we need aftermarket pickups as a question, one of the things that came out was that, you know, in the author's opinion, that there wasn't a lot of change in the pickup technology. So pickups had not evolved greatly in his opinion, right? And then I was thinking about that and I was like, actually, you know, I think there's a few pickups out there that have evolved, right? And they've changed and so I thought like maybe it would be a good fun discussion to talk about like some pickups that are different, right? That are
Yeah.
different in some ways, right? And but before we go there, you know, I just wanted to talk about like how the pickup works as an interesting like discussion, right? So the big number that everybody looks at is the resistance.
Hmm.
And essentially, like, you know, if you have like a mile of wire, I mean, seriously, like if you have like, you know, 5,000 lines of wire around your pickup, that's like, that can be like, you know, a lot of wire, right? And the wire has very low resistance, but if you have 5,000 lines of wire, you know, and two coils, and the signal has to go through two of these sets of windings, right? You know, it can create a resistance, and that's what you're measuring, right? Is the resistance through there. And the the way the pickup works is it basically generates it's a coil. It's kind of like a generator, but you know, it generates a current. So as the magnetic flux around the coils changes, it generates a current, right? And the more windings you have, the more current you get, or the more voltage is produced, right? I should say, right? So higher output pickups have a higher resistance, right? So if you want to pick up with low output, it's got low resistance, maybe 5K to 7 or 8K, and then
Hmm. Or
high
less.
output. Yeah, then like a high output pickup might be like 8K to 10 to 12 to 16K. I saw a YouTube video of a guy that had wound a pickup up with 54K of resistance. It was very funny because he plugged it into his amp and he's like, yeah, I got a clean amp. And he played a regular pickup through the clean amp and it was very clean. And then he just plugged the 54K pickup in there and it just sounded high gain distortion, like without a pedal, you know, which was kind of funny. So essentially like he's just generating like, you know, your pickup generates like 1 volt maybe, you know, of output, but
Hmm.
then his 54K pickup is generating 5 or 6 or 9 volts, you know, or whatever it is, right? You know,
Yeah, I suppose that must be like the mojo behind like the DiMarzio super distortion. I mean, because it's got the name super distortion. It must be great for distortion, but um
yeah. I
it is
have one of
possible to
those.
get cleans out of that too.
Yeah, it can be clean. I have
Do
one
you
of
have it
those.
installed?
Well, I have it in, it came in the, like I have a Guild, and it's like an S300D, and the D meant
Hmm.
DiMarzio because it came with DiMarzio pickups. But this was like way back when in the 70s, right? You know, I think it's like from 77. So, you know, in 77, there wasn't a, like that was like a new technology. DiMarzio was a new company and they just made their one product was the super distortion, right? Like
Hmm.
people wanted a hotter pickup and like DiMarzio made the hot pickup, you know. So it has one of those in the bridge. And I forget what it is. I think I measured it. It was like 12K or 16K, something like
Well,
that.
that's pretty damn hot.
It is, yeah. Yeah. It is pretty hot. I think it kind of actually like I kind of like it, but it kind of overdrives some things a little too much sometimes. But you know,
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, it sounds pretty good clean too. It can be clean, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've never had a super distortion myself. But
Yeah. I wasn't super thrilled with it. It sounds all right. Like I'm not like, wow, that's my favorite pickup in the whole world or anything, you know. So here's the other thing about pickups, right? Besides the resistance, like the DC resistance, there's another factor called like the inductance, right? And this is a harder one to measure, right? You have a special tool to measure the inductance, right? And it's measured in henries, so it'll be like L is the symbol for it. And I forget what the numbers are. I think it goes from like 2 to 10 is like kind of a typical range for a guitar pickup. But you know how your wah is kind of like like a filter with a band in it, right? It's like if you had a
Hmm.
signal that went across like this, the it'll hump in the middle and you're moving that hump around to get that wah wah effect, right? So pickups kind of have a little bit of that too. They call it a Q factor, right? And so they'll resonate or they'll have a resonance peak, right? That is at a certain frequency, right? And it's not quite as pronounced as the wah, but it'll be like 2000 to like 5000 K or something like that hertz for guitar like range, right? Like that's what guitar pickups do. If I remember the numbers, I'm not an engineer, so take this all with a grain of salt, but I just what I read, right? So the thing about this Q factor though is I think that this is what really gives the pickups their flavor, right? So they might be hotter going into the amp, but the actual tonal quality is really composed on where this mid-range or this little Q, this resonance peak sits, right? So some guitars it might sit more towards the treble end, and some might be more in the mid-range, and some might be more on a little more towards the bass, right? And that's what I think what really gives them the flavor, right?
Okay. And so how is this Q factor achieved in a pickup?
It's something about the way the pickups work, like electronically. So the coil, like if you create a coil and then you put it in line with a resistance, right? And you send a signal through it, like the guitar also has like a capacitor in it, right? So those three things create a filter. And that's what that like, the pickup just naturally creates this filter effect with the rest of the electronics in your guitar, right? It's just kind of you know, um, I don't know, part of the nature of it, right? It just you end up kind of with this thing. I bring that up because like some of the alternative pickups are not going to have this, depending on how they're created. So if they're created not with a big thick coil of copper wire, right, then they're gonna act differently, right?
Right.
You know,
Um, I would imagine that these other pickups, they come with recommendations for what capacitors you use to and what kind of like uh, pots you used to get the ideal sound out of the guitar.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or maybe you got to wire them up differently, right? You know.
Right.
So just like for fun, I got let me show you a couple just to get started. So just to say like, okay, what's different, right? So how's this pickup technology changed, right? Well, um, a humbucker like typically has, I wish I had one right here, but they have two coils and then there's a bunch of screws that go through or slugs that go through, right? And underneath there's a magnet and the magnet is in
Hmm.
contact with the slug or with the slugs and the screws. So it actually makes, you know, physical contact with them. And I was reading an article that was really interesting, and they were talking about this, and they were saying like that actually it's not the string disrupting the magnetic field of the created by the magnet in the pickup. It's that the magnet in the pickup magnetizes the string, and as the string's magnetic field moves past the coil, that's what creates the sound. Okay. So I bring that
Okay.
up because in the article I read, like again, I'm not an engineer, but for the article I read sound pretty convincing. And they even brought up, they quoted Seth Lover, the kind of inventor of I put that in quotes because a couple people invented the humbucker, right? But
Hmm.
Seth Lover gets kind of credit for it. But there's a quote from him in the article where he says exactly the same thing. So Seth Lover knew this in the 50s, right? So And the article I read, what they said was, they said actually it's the pole pieces that make the biggest difference in sound, because they're where the pole pieces are is kind of like determines like how the magnetism is imparted to the strings.
Hmm. Okay.
So that's kind of a weird idea, right? You know, like has nothing to do with the coil. It's more like the bigger effect of the pickup, besides like, you know, how many windings you have and some other things. Like the big factor is the shape of the pole pieces and the way that it imparts the magnetism, you know, on the strings. Because as the strings move out, they're going to lose their magnetic field, right?
Right.
You know? Um, but anyway, here's like a weird idea. So DiMarzio, so like let's talk about like things that aren't too far from the norm, right? So DiMarzio came out with a series of pickups. They called them airbuckers, right? And the air line of pickups, basically they're built just like a standard humbucker, except the magnet doesn't make contact with the screws or the slugs. So the like normally
Hmm.
the slugs or the screws, they have like there's a little bar, and the screws go right through it, and the magnet touches the bar, so everybody's in contact, right? So, you know, if a magnet touches another piece of metal, that metal gets magnetized, right? But in the air buckers, there's a tiny gap. There's like a little space, right? I think I found somebody took one apart on the internet. Let me share this with you, right?
Okay.
And I'll show you what the interior of the air bucker looks like. So here's like your humbucker. We're looking at it from the bottom, and you can see here's the magnet, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
this is where the pole pieces would come through, right? Okay. But do you see there's like a little ring here, and you can see it sits right here, and there's another one right there. And then right
Yes.
here, there's another pole piece, and there's this little ring. So the magnet doesn't actually touch the pole piece, right? So their idea here is that the magnet, they could use a stronger magnet and more windings, but create a weaker magnetic field. And that supposedly creates the same sound, but like also creates less pull, less magnetic tug on the strings, because the magnetic field is weaker,
Right. So
right?
with less tug on the strings, do you well, is the idea that you'd lose some of the muddiness that you get with a hot humbucker?
You know, I'm not sure, like, because like the language that people use to describe pickups is pretty flowery. Like there's a lot of like like buzzwords and like magic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you know, everybody that makes a pickup is like a wizard, and they're like, you know, stirring their cauldron, and they're going to come up with the most amazing thing that's going to put hair on your chest and make women swoon at your feet or whatever, right? You know, so,
Right.
you know, and it sounds organic and woody and natural uh and unnatural and, you know, metallic. You know, they throw in like every, you know, like I don't know if you've ever read, like especially like guitar fetish is especially egregious
Oh
in
yeah.
this.
Right.
You know, they'll just say the pickup sounds like everything you want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
right? For every person, you know. But so I'm not sure exactly what they say here, but the
Is a
big
range.
deal here is like, I think I remember there, one of the biggest claims was that they were saying that the weaker magnetic pull like created more sustain. Okay.
Okay.
But this is like a minor technology change, right? So this is different. Okay, not a lot different, but different, you know. They were kind of saying that that the idea was they were trying to mimic pickups that were made in the 50s, right? So these old humbuckers, and the claim was that that they sounded so good because the magnet had lost some of its magnetic field, like it had kind of, you know, weakened over time. And so that's also what gave them some of their mojo. People kind of dispute that though, saying like actually magnets don't lose their magnetic pull over even 20 years or 40 years. Like it takes like 100 years before they even show like a 2%
Mm-hmm.
difference or something, right? So
Yeah.
they kind of debunked that case. You know, I actually have some air pickups, and I'm like, I was not super happy with them. They don't sound bad, you know, they didn't really wow me either, you know. But I got some, I gave in to the, oh, more sustain. You know,
Well,
buzzwords. I
sustain.
was like
Yeah.
smacked upside the head by the buzzwords.
Yeah, I suppose I should probably, like go seek out like what are the factors that are going to give me the, the sound that I'm missing in other pickups. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Actually, let me share my screen again too, and I'll show you. This
okay,
is a picture of a regular humbucker, and you can see the screw, like the screws come through this metal bar, and it touches the magnet. And then these slugs right here, they also touch the magnet. Do you see that?
yep,
So that's kind of the standard setup. So the air bucker puts a little bit of space in there, you know. This actually is another DiMarzio pickup, and I forget the name of this one, but this is another thing that DiMarzio did that maybe takes the regular pickup and adds a little bit of, a little bit of something different to it. And what they did was on this one, you can see in between the regular slugs, there's actually some extra metal slugs. Do you see that?
yep.
Okay, so what they were doing is adding more like iron or ferrous metal to the core of the windings. So if you have a transformer, and this part I don't quite get is how the magnetic core affects the windings directly, right? But this adds a little bit of a difference, right? And so I forget what pickups they put this in, but this was like one of their secret tech things is they put these extra slugs in there.
Well, I gotta hand it to DiMarcio. They are definitely trying new things. They're not just like trying to recreate the 50s Gibson humbucker.
For sure. I think they're like the best company out there for pickups. Like, I mean, I like Seymour Duncan. I mean, actually everybody's good. Like GFS for price, you're like, if, it
Hmm.
depends on what you want. They're like, I want cheap pickups. GFS is great. Or that bootstrap guy seemed to make great pickups people were raving about for the rock bottom prices. But I
Hmm.
think as far as like old school, like the old money company, like DiMarzio seems to be my favorite out of those guys. And the big reason why, to be completely honest, is because their website works. I don't know if you've ever been to
Oh,
their website. It just works. Like you go there and you can find what you want, and it's really clearly laid out.
okay. No, I haven't been to their website, but that makes a difference. Like things that you can actually get um, are better than things that are difficult to get.
Oh yeah, I know. I know. I wanted to buy another Sustainiac, but the guy's website is so impossible to use. Like you go there and it's just like all this information like on the screen. You can't read anything. And then the ordering process is like, send us an email and tell us what you want and include the shipping costs. So you have to calculate how much everything costs and then calculate the shipping. And they have some clause in there. They're like, if you don't charge enough, we'll have to charge you extra. Like, and so I just gave up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a way to win business. I suppose they probably don't sell a lot of Sustainiacs to end users because they're difficult to install.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. The guy, I had a couple email exchanges with him, and he seemed to say business was booming and people loved his website, was his reply to me. I was like, I find your website a little confusing. Yeah, like, and he was like, people, oh, and he's like, I'm surprised to hear that because everybody I talk to says they love my website. And I was like, okay, I didn't
okay.
want to argue the point. I was just like, I just found it hard to use. Um, so okay, so I got another pickup for you. Okay.
All right.
This is called so okay, so pickups, they use a magnet, right? And there's like ceramic magnets, and then there's alnico magnets. So ceramic
Hmm.
magnets are made out of ceramic material, alnico magnets are made out of aluminum, nickel, and something else, or I forget what the makeup is, but it's a metal, right?
Cobalt or something.
What? Yeah, cobalt, yeah, something like
Cobalt.
that, right? And so the Alnico, I think, are stronger, right? And they come in different ratings too. There's like Alnico 4 and Alnico 5, and they can have an effect on the sound, right? There's also a type of magnet called rare earth magnet, or
Hmm.
neodymium, I think it's called, right? Neodymium, right? Okay. And they're
Okay.
really strong magnets, like they're
Yeah.
dangerous strong. Like I have one of those toys that's just like a bunch of little chrome spheres that are all rare earth magnets, and you can like form
Hmm.
it into weird shapes and stuff. But they're like, don't let kids play with these because if you swallow one, it's totally dangerous. Like it could get
Or
like
if you
two of
like,
them.
they could pinch your fingers.
Yeah, yeah, they can shatter too if you hold them and you let them like snap together,
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
but anyway, you can make a pickup with these.
Hmm.
So the guy with the 54K humbucker, he used a neodymium magnet because he needed more magnetic, field to pull the current through all that wire, right? You know, but there's a company called Q Tuner, and they make some neodymium, pickups, right? And they've made them for a couple years now. They're hard to get and they're super expensive. They're over $100, so I don't think I'd ever buy one, right? But here's a picture of them. I'll show them to you because they're a little bit interesting in the way that they're set up. So let me go and I'm going to hide
Wow.
this guy. That's actually not, that's something else. So
Okay.
this is the Q tuner right here, right? This is actually the old Q tuner, and they have like another one here. This is the newer one.
Are
And the
they
new,
encased in lucite or something?
yeah, I think they are. Yeah, they're kind of encased in like plastic. It's a little hard to see here, and the other one kind of makes it a little more clear, but you can see the coil is not this way, like facing up, right? It's on its side like this. So the two coils are like this, and then the magnet runs between them, right? So the coils are running this way, your strings would go over the top, and then the pole pieces or the magnets go up straight up and down. This one, you can see it has 3 rows of screws, and there's like a whole bunch of screws, right? This is the old one, and the new ones look like this, and they have like a bar magnet. So the pole pieces aren't adjustable, but I think if I understand correctly, there's 3 bars. So there's one here, one in the middle, and then one on the far side, and then 2 coils. Apparently these are supposed to be really strong. They have a lot of they're high output. And they're also, the way that they work, they have a very flat response. So they don't have the resonant peak. Or from what I understand, it's like a lot weaker, right? Like they don't
Hmm.
have a peak, like they have a very flat sound. So they have like equal lows and highs and mid range.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. This is something I would actually, I would like to see a demo of this.
Yeah, you can look it up on the internet. Like people test them. I found one guy was like, he was saying like, yeah, people don't like the lack of the resonant peak. So he was like, you could put a capacitor across the wires for the pickup to create a resonant peak at a frequency to get a different sound. I actually, I'm not sure. I think like when I think about it, like that flat response might be good for some people. Maybe like bass players would like it, but I think like
Hmm.
guitar players would be like, hey, what happened to all the character of my pickup, right? Because I think that resonant peak is the character. It's like the mojo, it's the flavor, the secret sauce to the pickup.
Yeah, but I could imagine like people who do like new metal or something like that. Who use a lot of heavy distortion. Maybe something like that would be better for them. Um,
Yeah, maybe if they play that like scooped sound, where it's just like the highs and the lows and the mid is all scooped out, maybe they'd be good for that. I don't know, right?
yeah.
But anyway, so that's like another like another new pickup, right? So it's got coil arrangements a little different, and then it's got rare earth magnets in it. I kind of, I'll bring up the idea, like I wonder, those magnets are a lot stronger, so they create a stronger magnetic response. You can have more coils, you can create a higher output, but does it affect sustain?
I would imagine that it would. Um,
Yeah, because like the
yeah.
Airbucker is claiming, right? Airbucker's claiming like, hey, we want a weaker magnetic field to increase sustain, right? So stronger
Mhm.
magnetic field for higher output might decrease sustain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people have talked about the pickups that were so strong that they sucked the strings down, like, or maybe the pickups were too high, and they
Yeah,
sucked the strings right down on top of the pickup
I've
with the
kind of heard
magnetic
that.
pole.
It's never happened to me, or not that I noticed. I mean, usually it's just my ineptitude at playing the instrument that is causing most of the problems, right? But anyway, so that was kind of like a weird thought there, right? Um, so what else do we get into here? So uh, oh, do you have any thoughts or anything you want to add there?
Um, Well, I mean, those are, I just want to say those are pretty far out. I mean, the things that I came up with pickups are just kind of like for versatility or for, um, you know, it's, they're kind of more standard sounds, but like the lipstick humbucker is one thing. Uh, or like the like the P rail, the Seymour Duncan P rail, so that you
Mhm.
get like, here, I'll share my screen
Yeah.
and just show a picture of that really quick. So you get a little bit of P90, and then you get this humbucker sound. The um, the website talks about there's like a variety of configurations that you can get out of that pickup. So I'll switch back to the Zoom and go to the website. Had it.
So let me ask a question. So that looks like, and if I understand correctly, that's got like a little thin single coil next to like a full size kind of a P90 pickup. So it's kind of like a P90 and a single coil together.
That's right. Yeah, and
And you,
it's the size of a humbucker.
Mhm.
So it gives you a choice of the P90 humbucker, which is like a single coil, that rail kind of thing is like the single coil, and then you can make it into a humbucker. So it's um the single coil rail and the P90 together as a humbucker.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So
That's
that's
actually
going to
kind
sound
of,
a little different.
yeah, that's actually kind of interesting, you know? Like plus like, maybe like there's like I was reading about the pickups too when I was doing a little research on these and I was finding that like DiMarzio has a couple patents out on different pickup technologies and one of them is like using um different, gauge of wire on each of the two coils. So one
Hmm.
coil has like a different, like a heavier or lighter gauge of winding compared to the other one, and then one coil has more windings than the other, right? And so this actually kind of has that same effect, right? They have like, but this is like really lopsided. Like your
Yeah.
P90 has like a lot of windings, and then the single coil has like very few, maybe because it looks so thin. I can't imagine they fit as many windings on that, you know?
Right. Yeah. I don't think it would have as nearly as many lines, but P90s are um, pretty hot as far as single coil pickups go, anyways.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I wonder if there'd be a big like volume difference between the P90 zone and the single coil zone on, if you had a switch for that,
that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I should watch some demos about that. But uh,
I got a quick question.
okay,
So, there's like also like if we just look at pickups, like one of a minor technology, though it's been around since the 80s, right, is the bar magnet. Actually, it probably goes
right.
way before that too, right? I think like a lot of those or those lipstick pickups all had bar magnets in them. Probably a lot of those cheap Japanese guitars had bar magnets, right? But you can't adjust the height on those,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can do the whole pickup, but you can't adjust it individually like you can with the pole pieces. That said, like a string as it moves out from over the pole piece, like it starts to get a weaker signal potentially, right?
Right.
So if you bent a string or something, right, and pulled it away from the pole piece, though I've never noticed that to be a problem, but I also have not really noticed that adjusting the height of the pole pieces makes such a big difference. Like I never really do that. I just adjust the whole pickup height.
Yeah. Well, I don't do that either, but I've noticed that a lot of the Strat pickups that I get, they have the pole pieces are staggered.
Yeah. I think that
And
was, yeah, I think that was kind of the original thing, like Fender did that.
yeah, and you can't change it.
Yeah.
It's they're just kind of like built that way.
Yeah. So you got
But
anything
yeah,
else that, yeah, go on.
I was actually looking for a the split pickups. Like, do you remember the Fender 12. It had like it looked like a single coil pickup that was split in half, and then they were
Oh
they
yeah,
were staggered like on a P bass.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I've seen some pickups that are just, they're not even staggered. They're just like they put two coils next to each other, so it's a reverse wound single coil. It's a humbucking single coil.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I have
I
some
mean, it's actually
examples
two
like that.
coils. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll get there.
Cool.
You know.
All right. Yeah. I was just gonna say I got a couple sets of these rail type pickups,
Yeah,
and yeah, the idea of adjusting the pole pieces never occurs to me.
yeah. I got one for you.
Okay.
So this is the lace alumitone. So if we're going to talk about, changes in pickup technology, right? Like this is the lace alumitone, right? Um, like I'm going to put this picture over here and then get this other picture here. Can you see, like, do you see the frame here? This one's like a little different, but you can see like on this side, everything is connected, right?
Yep.
You kind of see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Actually, maybe even if I click on this, right, you can kind of see right there, like that's all connected, right? If I look at this one right here, do you notice on this side, there's like this little piece of metal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of see that, right?
Yeah.
So this, like if you saw this, the metal frame here, imagine that it's like a U shape, like it goes from here, like right down underneath this tongue, and
Mm-hmm.
the tongue here doesn't make contact there. Okay, so these lace alumitones, they're kind of like regular pickups, and then they're kind of like way different. Okay, so this is a magnet, and this is another magnet. This one over here has two magnets in it too. It's the same, and that other one we saw was similar. Just the magnets were like in a different arrangement. They were in two rows, right? But basically, they're the same pickup. They just have a different aesthetic, right?
Okay.
Okay, so so here's the thing with this pickup, which is interesting. Okay, so there's kind of this U shape, right? And if you think about it this way, there's one coil that starts here, wraps around this magnet right here, and then connects here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another coil that starts here, wraps around, and connects right here. Right. So there's one coil. So that's the coil. Like it's got an aluminum frame, right? And, if you think about the aluminum, it's just like a single like wire. It's like instead of having like 5,000 turns of little thin copper wire, you just have one big thick piece of aluminum. It's about 3 millimeters thick, right? And
Right.
it's just one wrapping. Like, so you have one wire just going once around the magnet. And there's two of them here. So it's like a humbucker. So you got one wire going this way and then one wire going around the other way, around the other magnet, right? And then the magnets, I think, are opposite polarity, like in a humbucker, right? Okay.
Okay.
So what's interesting about this pickup is instead of using like a voltage-based design where you have lots of coils and they generate a significant voltage, right? This just generates a tiny little trickle of current. And then underneath here, there's like, you can't see it, but this thing right here is kind of attached to a coil. There's two little coils of wire underneath there. And a
Okay.
coil, like if you take a voltage, like you take some wall voltage, your 120 volts out of the wall, and then you plug it into your tube amp, it goes through a transformer, right? And so the transformer is two coils of wire, right? And if you send a current through one coil, it generates a voltage in the other coil, right? And if the coils are mismatched, like one of them has more windings than the other, you can either create a step down or a step up transformer. So if you have like fewer coils on the 120 volt side and a lot more coils on the 600 or 400 volt side, then you get 400 volts coming out and that powers your tube amps. right? Because your tube
Right.
amp needs like a higher voltage, right? If
Hmm.
you have like a 9-volt wall wart, you have like a step down transformer. So you got 120 volts and then you have very few windings on the other side. So they're not actually in electrical contact, but the magnetic field generated by the coil here and the AC current generates a lower voltage AC on the other coil, right? And you get 9 volts or 12 volts or whatever it is, right? So this does the same thing. You get like a tiny current here, and then it runs through another transformer that bumps it up to like a regular pickup voltage level. It kind of turns the current into a voltage, right? So these are kind of interesting. It's kind of a new technology, totally different, similar, but totally different. It's like a humbucker, but also kind of one coil of wires, totally different from your standard humbucker, right?
Right.
I don't know if I can find a picture of the underneath of this thing. Oh yeah, here's what it looks like. You can't really see it here, but that little extra coil is like underneath this thing. Well, let me not go to reverb there. Yeah, so it's a little hard to see here, but underneath here, there's like a little, like two little coils of wire. So the frame acts as one coil and it generates a little bit of current and it feeds into these two coils here. And then that comes out through the wires. And you can wire these like single coils or like a humbucker, right? I don't know if you can do them in series or parallel or all those other things too, but they basically, it's like it's a four conductor pickup, you know? This pickup though also is similar to those Q tuners in that it has like they can have a pretty high output actually. So they make they get like they measure like 3 or 4K or 5K, but I think that they actually have the output of like a 10 to 16K humbucker.
Right. Because of the little coils on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. So they actually have like a higher output, right?
Yeah.
Um, the
I
other
wonder
thing,
if
oh,
I
go
wonder
on,
if
yeah.
that technology could be used to amplify more traditional types of underwound pickups, like
Sure,
vintage
yeah.
wound.
Yeah, I bet you could. Yeah. I don't know how you do that though. I'm not an engineer, but I kind of suspect maybe, you know. The other thing about these is that they also have a very flat response.
Oh,
So
okay.
they don't have that resonant peak because of the way the coils are set up here. So and they also interact a little weirdly with your tone control. Like I have a pair of these and they sound pretty good. Like they don't, they don't wow me where I'm like, oh my God, these are so amazing, but they sound pretty good, they sound all right. But if you have a tone control, as soon as you roll off the tone a little bit, it gets super muddy. So what I
Interesting.
did
Okay.
was I used like a switch with a capacitor. So if you put a capacitor in line with them, right, or you just without the resistance from the pot and you just change the cap, then you get like a wide range of tone, right? So so these kind of work a little differently with the tone control. So you might not be happy with them if you just put them in your regular guitar with the traditional tone control, right? And they
Mhm.
work fine when the tone's all the way up, but as soon as you start to roll it off, they get muddy like really quick, you know?
Yeah, you said the volume or the
The tone. The volume works just
okay.
fine,
Okay.
you
So
know?
you can roll off the volume and it doesn't dampen the tone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something about the tone control. I don't know why, but it's something electrically like how they work, because I think it's because they have such a low resistance, maybe. I don't know, right? They don't, you know, yeah, I'm not sure. I read an article about it and it was a little like, engineer speak. So it was a little over my head, but I actually tried the suggestion in the article of making the multi-position switch and that actually worked really well. So whoever wrote it was like spot on.
Mm. That's right. You put that in that Jazzmaster guitar, right?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, there's Illumitones. Those are like, again, like we're getting pretty far out of the pickup technology of, 1950 there, right?
Absolutely. I think it might have been in that same video about the pickups that we were talking about that the guy brought up. Did he bring up Fishman Fluence?
Maybe.
Because that's a pretty different kind of a pickup as well. Um,
Are those active?
I don't know.
Huh.
Um,
'Cause I didn't include any active pickups in my list. Or maybe I did. I don't know. I don't think so.
um, it doesn't really say. Um, with oh wait, it says with active high output and enhanced articulation for voice one. I don't know. I didn't do my homework and read up on how these work, but
I've never used those or know anybody that has one, so I'm not familiar.
well, I will tell you they are $250 a piece.
I've heard of them, but not never seen one. Are they for bass or do they make them bass and guitar? Or,
They're for 6-string guitars.
okay.
And they do look a little bit more traditional than the Alumitone. I think that's one of those things like, you know, if somebody's going to spend a lot of money on a boutique pickup to go in their vintage Strat, is probably not going to be the Alumitone.
Yeah.
Even though it would fit in there and it might, it might sound good, but
Yeah. They make the Illumitones, you can get them with covers, so they make one that looks like it looks like a standard humbucker with a chrome cover.
oh, okay.
You can't get them where it looks like bobbins though. They don't make a plastic bobbin
Oh, that
cover,
would
you
that
know?
would be silly.
Yeah, yeah. They make a kind of a P90, that gold one that we were just looking at. I think that was actually the P90 shape. So they make one that fits a P90 route.
I noticed that it had the screw holes, the mounting screw
Yeah,
holes
in the
right in the
middle. Yeah,
middle. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, are you ready? I got another one.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay,
Um,
so let me share this one with you, right? Um, so that looks pretty weird, huh? What's that?
mm-hmm.
So this is called the Zex coil, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like 6 coils, but it actually just outputs one, like it's actually a single pickup. It's not like a hexaphonic pickup. Okay. So it doesn't have 6 outputs. It's just got like one output, but it has 6 separate coils. Okay. Kind of interesting,
Okay.
huh?
Yeah, it is
And,
interesting.
yeah. And here you go. So it's also humbucking. So it's humbucking because the 3 coils here have a magnet that's going the opposite direction of the 3 coils on this side. So if you thought about it as a humbucker, it's kind of like these 3 coils right here are like one of your coils in your humbucker, but this is the other coil in the humbucker. So the idea here, I guess, was to make a pickup that was humbucking, but also had the quality of a Strat pickup.
Right.
You know,
Actually, that's a good point. I mean, one of the things that I've heard people talk about on YouTube is that um, when you spread out the the distance between your coils makes a big difference in how your humbucker is going to sound. Um, and one of the reasons that these kind of rails sound different from like a humbucker sized rail is because the strings are the pickups picking up the vibration of a very specific part of the string. As soon as you get like a humbucker sized humbucker, a traditional humbucker, you're you're getting a broader area of that vibration, and that affects your sound quite a bit.
oh yeah. Yeah, actually, the guy that makes these, he was the one that wrote the article about saying that it's not the string upsetting the magnetic field of the magnet on the pickup, it's that the string is getting magnetized by the magnetic field. And as that magnetic field of the string moves is what creates the sound, right? And so as I was reading that,
Right.
he made that point, and then he said, what we found is that the biggest shaper of tone when you create the pickup is the shape of the pole pieces.
Mm,
And so this has a very interesting arrangement of pole pieces, right? There's no gap between them really. Like if a string was over this one, you'd be over it, until you hit this next one, right? You know what I mean?
yep.
There's not really much of a gap there between the two, you know? So that was that guy's argument, you know? He sounded like he knew what he was talking about, you know? He invented this thing, so I think that that's kind of interesting. Here is a like kind of a diagram on how they're assembled. So they basically have like 6 coils, and then there's a magnet underneath, you know? Some of them I've saw, like, I think this is like a newer version, but they had an older version that actually just had 2 magnets, like one that would cover these 3 poles or coils on this side, and then one that would cover these 3,
Right.
right? And the way they explained it is they said basically that, you know, the 3 magnets here are going one way and the 3 magnets here are going the other way, and then the coils are reversed, right? So
Mhm.
so they can use this 3 here as like to humbuck the or buck the hum coming from the other 3, you know, right?
Right.
You know, so and then they had another one too. They make a humbucker. So this is their
Wow.
humbucker, right? It's got 2 of those coils, and you could basically use these 2 separate humbucking coils. I think like you can use these separately. So you could have like you could just switch it to single coil mode, or you could have a humbucker mode, you know?
Yeah. Well, my guess would be that even if it were in single coil mode, it would still be humbucking
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
unless, yeah, yeah, unless he made this one differently so that the opposing magnets were not opposing
Yeah.
um
I'm
on this
I'm
model.
not sure, but I think that that's what they said on their website. That sounded like that's what they were saying. I think this is the bottom of this thing, right? So this what
Mhm.
looks like this at the top, but then on the bottom it looks like this, and you can see it's basically like 2 of those single coil, 2 of these guys like inside like a humbucker container.
Right. Well, those don't look like ceramic magnets. That looks like a, like a um
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember reading what kind of magnets they use. They could be like those rare earth magnets. It could be something else. I don't know.
right. Well, because they're pretty small, compared to the magnets that like even in like a Strat pickup
Yeah.
has. Yeah, that whole idea of different like shapes and sizes of pole pieces is interesting to me. I bought a set of Telecaster pickups from Guitar Fetish that they're traditional tele pickups, but they just have bigger pole pieces.
Hmm.
Like the diameter of the pole pieces is like double what you normally get.
Yeah. Seymour Duncan makes some of those. They call them like quarter pounders. They just have big. I had a pickup like that once, but it broke. But I had one once. And it was a tele pickup and it just had big fat, you know, magnets, you know.
It's cool. I thought it sounded good. Right now the
Yeah,
guitar's in pieces, but uh, yeah, definitely sounded good.
nice. You know. So anyway, so there was a discussion of pickup technology. That's where the pickups are at these days. There's probably some more that we missed, but those were the ones that I picked out. I have a couple more, um, but the other ones I have are they're all hexaphonic. So so it's like I'll show it to you if you want.
I think, yeah, I'd like to see that because, I mean, the other examples I have are more just kind of like bar magnet type pickups or just alternatives. But
Yeah. So this is a Somnium pickup. So this is basically it's got 6 coils in it. Actually, I guess this one has 12, right? And it's got like 6 outputs. So there's an output for every string. So there's
that's interesting.
2 humbucking coils for each string. And let me see if I got the other picture. This is what it looks like on the bottom. So I guess they're active. You know, it's got some kind of op amp or something in here and a bunch
Hmm.
of other parts. And then it's got like an out for every string. I think you power it from some of these connections, and then the output comes from the other ones, you know? This is their website, right? Let me see. Right, so it's hexaphonic variable gain pickup, $250, right? So it'd look like this from up above, right?
Okay.
You know, they give you like a whole description of it. I'm not sure if you need some special, like, you know, like you probably need, like if it's 6 out, you might have to have some like a board or some kind of electronics in your guitar to mix all 6 strings, or you have to have some kind of 6 output like connector to run to your 6 amplifiers or what, I don't know what, right? You know? So anyway, so that was kind of interesting, but this is like, yeah, this is kind of getting out there. So it's different, right? I
Yeah,
mean, no,
well,
oh yeah,
more
go on.
questions. There's definitely more questions than there are answers there, but like
Yeah.
start to think about the possibilities. If you had a separate output for every string, for instance, um, what would you do with that?
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know. There's another guy here, this guy Bartar hexaphonic pickups. This guy makes these hexaphonic pickups. Essentially, like this is like each one of the pickups, you know, but
mhm.
he puts them into a single. I think you can get a single coil or a humbucker, but it doesn't really look like much. It's hard to show them. Like, you know, he's just got a single coil here with 6 outputs and a humbucker with 6 outputs, and then he kind of sells a box that looks like this, so you can plug your guitar into this with like it's kind of like one of those MIDI connectors, like a 5 pin or 6 pin connector, and then you can adjust the volume and you can have an output for each of the strings, you know, which I don't know if I'd be able to use that, you know, but that was another one.
Yeah, I don't think I need that, but I was thinking about it the other day. I brought a guitar to rehearsal, the with the Whiskey Pills band, and I was like, I feel like my treble strings are just too loud, and
Hmm.
and I thought, well, I need to do something about that. I'll figure it out by the next time.
Could you
But
do
yeah,
it like lowering the pickup height on the treble side?
well, it was I brought this Strat with the rails on it, so it would be really weird.
Could you
To
tilt it a little bit, you know?
I could tilt it a little bit, um, but I probably should try some other things first. Like try EQing the amp a little bit.
Oh yeah, maybe just turn the treble down on the guitar a little bit,
Right.
zone down, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
could
mean,
it
the
could
thing
be
about a
the
Strat,
amp too, right? You know?
yeah, it could be. I mean, there's a lot of things to try out, but I think that a Strat is a lot of times you have this drastic difference between just your bridge pickup, and then you go to the next setting, which is your bridge and middle pickups together, and you get a lot more mud when you mix in that middle pickup. So
Hmm.
I think more options are always good.
Options, more options.
Yeah.
We want all the options.
Well, I was talking to somebody. Oh, I think it was Ryan. He was saying that like he was going to wire something so you had two humbuckers, and you've got a five-way switch. So like in one position, in all the way back, position 5 or whatever, you have just the single coil um, of the furthest back coil of the humbucker. In the position 1, you have only the first coil of the neck humbucker. In the middle, you have one that's the outer coils. So like position 2 would be the outer coils, then position um, 3 I think would be the two inner coils, and so you know you can get almost every combination.
That sounds like how those Ibanez gems are wired.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, that
um
sounds kind of cool, actually. I read about that and I was like, I want to try that just to see what it sounds like, you know?
yeah, I mean, it seems like a good, like you'd have every kind of like a tonal variation um available to you with those pickups. So um
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going to
that's
try
kind
to
of
do that with the Stage Master
oh, nice.
as much as I can,
Yeah,
with a single coil in the middle.
nice. Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna work there, right? So you just have that it just has 2 single coils in it?
The Stage Master has two humbuckers right now.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It's got 2 humbuckers, right?
Yeah. So I was going to add a single coil in between.
Yeah. Yeah, then you can do the gem wiring. For that gem wiring, what you need is you need the super switch. So those traditional strat switches, they have a limited number of poles, and the super switch is kind of like two of them with one switch.
Oh, okay.
So it has a double set of poles. So then you can wire it up in more interesting ways.
Okay, but it's still 5 positions.
Yeah, it's 5 positions, but then it's like, imagine two of those switches like glued together side by side.
Okay.
And the first set is like a set of connections, right? You know what I mean?
Okay. I'm gonna put this on my list.
Yeah, they make a couple versions of that switch too, right? But if you kind of look up like Strat Super Switch or Ibanez Super Switch or something like that, you'll get it, And
Okay.
there's a couple versions.
Cool. Anytime you put super in front of something,
Yeah,
um, it's always better. Um,
yeah. Just think
it's
about glue.
revolutionary. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or back in the day when you had to round the corners on buttons by on HTML by
Uh-huh.
making a table and then putting transparent GIFs in the corners.
Yeah.
I made my own version that was called Super Table because you
Nice.
could change the color of the buttons just using, like Java color picker.
Nice.
That's not relevant to our channel in any way, but
Yeah. Those were the
uh,
days.
yeah.
High technology. Hey, I got a couple more pickups to show you, right? At
Oh,
least I
great.
got I got like one more.
Okay.
Okay, so this is I don't understand this guy actually, right? So this is like the company, I can't even pronounce their name. It's like CYCFI, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the guy, he sells these like, it's kind of like a little kit thing. It's got some electronics here, it's got a frame, and then you can buy each one of these capsules separately, right?
Okay.
So like this is what the thing actually looks like, right? Looks like one of these, right? And then this is what the capsule looks like. So there's like a low Z coil with a perma alloy ring, integrated preamplifier. So I guess there's actually electronics like inside this one capsule, right? Well, yeah, it looks like it's got a couple transistors and then some other parts there, right? So essentially, like you could turn this into like, a hexaphonic pickup, or, you gotta get four of them or six of them or eight of them or seven, like depending on how many strings you have. Let me actually go find their website here.
I like, there are very few pickups that you can get if you have, say, like a um, tenor guitar or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
or a 7-string guitar or an 8-string guitar. It's cool that you can really choose as many strings as you want with a system like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this guy, he sells this thing and I don't quite get it. Like it looks super tech. He's got this website, he's got a store, he's gonna make a new rail pickup. I guess you can combine the rail with how many strings that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 strings. So you can have a 10-string rail. I don't know, right? And then he's
Mhm.
got a store, he's got sales. I've never seen anybody use these, though there is somebody that sells guitars with these pickups in them, right? So there's like Rick Toon makes these super weirdo, like, I don't know, ergonomic guitars or something, right? I'm not quite sure what electronics go into all these things, Um, and I suppose you probably have to have this preamp. So if you have like 6 pickups going out, they got to go into the preamp for 6 channels so you can mix them all together or whatever, you know. But he's got all this stuff. But I've never seen anybody like, use these.
What's so new?
Yeah, yeah, there you go. I know. New multi 680 to $200. That's actually not too bad
Yeah, I mean,
for the
some of those
price.
other pickups that we were looking at were like $250 for a individual pickup. So,
Yeah.
um,
I suppose though you'd also have to have the 19-pin output jack, the cable, and this amplifier preamp or whatever this thing is. right? So you probably have to have one of these and some other stuff. So that was like another one that I ran into, but that one's like a hexaphonic kind of setup with like it's like hexaphonic and active. Like
I mean, if you're out there, blazing a trail, um, then you got to try it all. Um,
yeah.
and then, it's like if you're cabled to some proprietary hardware, that's just the price of being new and innovative.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that's a discussion for pickups. That's all I got today. It was kind of when I saw that video, like, and the guy asked the question, like, or he posed the idea that people weren't doing anything innovative. I thought like, I don't know about that. I think some people are doing some innovative things, and I'm sure I missed something, right? But
Oh,
I think there's
absolutely,
kind
I'm
of a
sure.
range of things, though. I think like in general, like guitar players are not, they're not like, not a lot of them, the majority are not happy to do the new thing. They want the old thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of like what's holding guitar music in this certain kind of limbo zone. Like everybody wants to sound like Jimi Hendrix or the Beatles or whatever. Eric Johnson, even like Eric Johnson uses very traditional gear. Um, but I think that the generation of kids who are making music now, who are coming up, who are innovating on the guitar, they don't. They're not like um, they're not stuck on the same ideas of tone as as we are and as people of our
Yeah.
generation are.
Yeah, good for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
then
gotta,
you see people who use like a lot of tapping and things like that, different techniques. So
yeah,
they want a lot of output and um, they don't necessarily want to distort.
yeah, right. Hey, so I got a question now. We should move into our next segment here. So
Okay.
what have you been listening to?
Well, um, I think we haven't recorded one of these in a while, so I've got some things saved up. But what have I been listening to? Uh, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but La Femme has a new album out. I think
Nice.
they're outstanding. They're um, very cool band. It's kind of like psychedelic disco cabaret music. Very French. I kind of got back into Stereo Lab again. Well, this is some old notes, but yeah, and then I went on a little uh, dive into the 80s. I was listening to the Motels, this 80s band. They had like a couple major hits and then
What
a few
was,
minor hits, like Only the Lonely, not the one that Roy Orbison sings, but they had
yeah.
another song, that
Oh,
and Suddenly Last Summer. Um, and the draw really with that band is the singer. Oh, they're the ones that have that crazy pink Nagel guitar.
oh, nice. The Nagel guitar.
Yeah.
Funny.
So how about you? Have you been listening to anything new?
Uh, no, what have I been listening to? I was listening to, what I listen to a lot most is I started with um Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It's like Pink Floyd's first album. And then I
Hmm.
listened to their second album and their third album and their fourth. I just listened to all the albums in order, and it's kind of funny because you can hear the progression, and there's a couple albums in there, like there's an album called More,
Mhm.
More, and there's another one called Obscured by Clouds. Um, and they both actually have these kind of just like straight up rock songs on them, like, which are kind of funny because like there's a lot of like weirdo psychedelic kind of drone stuff, and then, like, just kind of weird, like, I don't know how you, yeah, I guess you could just call it psychedelic, thing. And then, but then they have these straight up rock songs every once in a while. And so
I,
it was kind of interesting to listen
okay.
to like their progression, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you literally listen to the whole progression. Um, I don't think I've listened to those second and third albums. Actually, I haven't listened to the entirety of the first album either. Just kind of, you know, heard what I needed to hear for reference.
Oh, you should listen to it. There's a couple songs like there's some songs like I don't like, you know, like I'm not really big on those like kind of goofy songs like The Gnome and Corporal Clegg and, you know, See Emily Play and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I like songs like Astronomy Domine and Interstellar Overdrive and like all the weird super psychedelic kind of improvisational things, you know. I kind of read something about them and they were saying like at the time their whenever they played live, it was they never practiced, they just played live and it was mostly like improvisational, like, you know, kind of who knows what would happen,
Hmm.
right? But then their manager kept saying like, hey, we want you to like put out some more songs like the Beatles. So they'd have these songs like side by side on the record. There'd be like, you know, Astronomy Domine and you know, See Emily Play or you know, The
Hmm.
Scarecrow or some weird songs, you know, like that are kind of sing-songy, you know, like next to these songs that are kind of weird spacey jams, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I heard that they were very inconsistent. You know, sometimes you'd see them and they were just terrible. It's just like a mess.
I could see that. Yeah. I could see him. But you know, a lot of the live stuff that I've heard, like the stuff that gets recorded and that published is great. Like I forget the order of the albums. I think it's like, what is it like? Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and then there's like a Saucer Full of Secrets, and then there's an album called Umagumma, and I kind of like Umagumma, and it's got two live or maybe three like live tracks just on it, you know, and it's like
Mhm.
Astronomy Domine and Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, and
Well, that's all post Sid Barrett, right? Like
yeah.
Amagama. Yeah, it's like.
Well, he wrote some of that, but he wasn't there at the time. I think he was gone by that time.
Mhm.
But and then like Saucer Full of Secrets is on there too, right? But the recordings are live recordings of those songs, and they're great. They're just like super on it, you know. I mean, of course, they're not going to take their bad recordings
Right.
and publish them, you know.
Yeah. Well, they're really a great band. I mean, David Gilmour, it has been a great guitarist since, you know, since the beginning.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah, it's hard to fault him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there there was some interesting stuff. Like there's a song called the Nile Song, you know, and I guess the Melvins covered it. So I listened to the Melvins
Hmm.
recently, and then they did a cover of that, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go listen to the Pink Floyd version. You know, it's kind of cool. It's got this like they do this thing a lot where they're like they just go down a half step, so just like E, and then it's like E flat, you know,
Hmm.
right? And the Nile song's kind of like that. It'll be like it starts out on A, and then it goes to G, and then it goes to A, and then it goes to G, and then it goes to A, and then it goes to G, and then it goes to F sharp. And then it goes up a fourth and it does the same thing all the way around the circle of fifths, right?
Hmm.
And it's kind of a cool progression. And the Melvins play it, they do a great version of it, you know?
Cool. I'll check that out. Probably the Melvins version. Um,
Yeah, look up the Melvins one. The Melvins one is interesting. The one I saw was on YouTube and they're playing live in like 19, I don't know, 1995 or something, or somewhere around there. And they're playing in the UCLA, right? Like campus, right? So they're it looks like they're just in the quad at some campus playing and they're just totally loud, just Melvinizing. Except they have a woman playing bass, and I guess their bass player was I forget her name. It was like um something they called her Lorax, but like her name was like something like Lorelei Temple Black. So she was like the daughter of like Shirley Temple,
wow.
right?
Hmm.
You know, and she was playing the bass, you know. I think I saw them around that time in San Francisco when and maybe she was playing bass then. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. I was probably drinking. I can't. It was hard to remember. But it was back in the 90s, like, they played it like it's called Justice League now, but it had that club had a different name on Divisadero back then.
Yeah.
I think it was like,
Yeah, I can't remember.
yeah, I
It
forget
was
what
the
they
Independent for a while. Or no, it's the Independent now, isn't it?
I can't remember. It's been
The
so long.
Justice League, it was in the it was what it was called um in the like 2000.
Yeah, I forget. I think it was, if I recall, it was at that place,
Okay.
I saw him there, but like on Visadero, but it was like a
That's a
long
great
time
spot.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was kind of good. I remember the show. I kind of remember it, not everything, but I do remember they were loud. I remember the loud.
That's kind of the signature.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So what are you gonna do this week? You got any plans? What are you gonna work
Um,
on?
well, I've got a show on Tuesday at the Tupelo Bar. Um, I'm I got an analog synthesizer. Or no,
Oh,
I didn't
nice.
get an analog synthesizer. I got a an Arturia Micro Freak, so I need to learn how to use that. But it's a modular. It's not even a modular synthesizer. It's a semi-modular synthesizer
Nice.
in that it can interface with other Euro rack things. So um,
Cool.
my collection is beginning.
It's a bad habit.
But yeah, I
Make
don't
some
know.
make some music, right? Do
Yeah,
something weird with it. Do something kooky.
yeah. I mean, I kind of bought it in a big way to have something to play with, to play along with on the
Mhm.
guitar.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I do that. I
it's really
set
good with
up
that.
like the synthesizer just to do a drone, and then I'll play with the drone.
Hmm.
Kind of good practice.
Yeah, yeah, and you can. This has a step sequencer built into it, and so I can create little loops and things like that, and then just play along with that.
Nice. Well, that looks pretty fun. You said something about getting one of those, and I kind of looked it up, and it looks pretty cool. Like that, like people say a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, and there was a recent firmware upgrade that introduced um, the secret vocoder that it has built into it. So you
Oh,
can plug a mic into it, and nobody knew it had a plug for a mic, um, but it actually has a vocoder function. And they added two new oscillators that were um, developed by a Eurorack company. I can't remember the name right now, but
yeah,
it's cool. They're just like adding new features to it. It's kind of like Tesla adding the
yeah,
autopilot to their car after people have had it for a while.
yeah. I hear the oscillator in there is based on the mutable instruments Platts, like the Platts oscillator. So, and that
Hmm.
is like the mutable instruments is pretty interesting company. It's just like one person that runs it, and they make these modules. And what they do is if after they sell a certain number of them, they open source the plans for it. And most of their modules, if not all of them, use some kind of Arduino, like, or maybe it's not an Arduino, but it's similar. It's like a microcontroller. So they program it, right? Um, and so they release all the software, and everything is open source. So it's all on GitHub, and you can build your own. So people build copies of the mutable instrument stuff, and they add modifications and stuff. And so I guess the micro freak people were like, oh, well, we can pull Platts and pull in all the oscillators that are in Platts.
That's cool. Yeah, there was a couple um, additional ones that were added, and you'd know them if you heard it, but um, yeah, I have a feeling they're going to keep doing that. They're going to keep
Yeah,
adding um, new oscillators and new features
yeah.
as time goes on.
Yeah, the mutable instrument stuff, people make a lot of alternative firmware for it, which is kind of
Hmm.
interesting. So, you can get a mutable instruments thing, and then someone will make alternative, or you could do it yourself. You can make an alternative firmware so it does something else. So then the module becomes a new module just by adding new software to it.
That's really
I'm a
cool.
I'm a big fan of this thing called Ornament and Crime, and it's like a quad quantizer with a bunch of extra features in it.
Hmm.
So basically, it's got 4 outputs, and it's got 4 CV and 4 like trigger inputs. So there's 4 triggers, 4 CVs, and 4 outputs. And for any input CV, you can quantize to any scale, and they have a whole bunch of, like, I think there's like 100 scales or more in it, right? And you can program, like, it has a bunch of apps in it, so you can pick which app you're running. It has a little screen, you kind of cycle through the screen, and the apps do a lot of different things. So there's one app that's like 4, it turns it into 4 envelope generators,
Hmm.
and you can program each envelope generator. So it can be attack decay, it can be attack sustain release, it can be like any kind, and then you can set the attack and decay time, and then you can trigger them separately, right? You can put CV control over the slope. There's another one that's like a copy machine or copier machine, and it's basically like you send in a voltage, it samples the voltage and sends it out through the first output, and then the next voltage it samples, it sends to the first output, and the voltage from the first output goes to the second output, right? And it does that for all 4 outputs. Then there's another one called Quantermain that, like, it's kind of like a sample and hold with 4 channels, except you can program each of the channels differently. So you could say one channel is going to be in this scale, and you can mask some of the notes. So you can say, well, I'm going to be in the major mode, but I only want to have, A, E, or C, E, G, and F or something, right? You can just pick a couple notes,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can also set like how it chooses the random notes. So it could sample an input CV, or it could generate random notes based on like a random number sequence, or some other. They have a bunch of different, like they have a Turing machine, right?
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So this is all that same device, that quantizer?
Yeah, it's just
Or
one module, right? And
yeah.
it does all these different things. There's actually like 12 apps or more. I can't even describe them all. Like one app is like a dual sequencer. So it's got 2 sequencers, and you can have a gate output and a CV output for the first sequencer, and the same for the second sequencer. And then the sequencers you can program like 1 to 16 notes, and then they're quantized, so you can quantize them to scale. And then you can have like multiple sequences, so then you can program the different sequences. I think you can have 4 sequences, and you can program it, so you can say do sequence A, B, A, or something, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
A, B, C, right? And then it'll repeat. It's pretty cool.
Oh,
I
cool.
bring up Ornament and Crime because actually a big piece of Ornament and Crime was built off of the mutable instruments stuff. So like, mutable instruments, like in, I think, braids and some other modules, they have like a quantizer built in. So the code for that, they repurposed, and they built this Ornament and Crime from it.
Cool. I
I
mean, I
think,
suppose that's like what happens in pedals. Like people just iterate on other people's ideas, but it's like it's really crazy, like the exponential, like just expansion of Eurorack technology
yeah.
because of
Well,
firmware.
what's cool about it is it's people not being greedy.
Mm-hmm.
So like the mutable instruments, they say, well, we're going to open source stuff after we sell a certain number of units. So they sell like 1,000 units or more, or I forget how many, but once they reach that point, then they open source the code, and then anybody can use it. What they could have done is they could have said like, oh, we're going to keep everything proprietary. And then all this like ecosystem built around the mutable instrument stuff would never happen. They could say like, actually, we've got this technology, and we're not going to share it with anybody because it would interfere with the product that we're selling,
Mm-hmm.
right? So actually, we're going to just keep this and not give it to anybody, and then nobody gets it, right? And I think that's like a problem in a lot of companies these days. You get a big company, and they're like, well, we don't want anybody horning in on our product,
Yeah, but I
right?
don't think that leads to their success,
Yeah,
and
actually, I think it hurts
exclusivity.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it hurts us too as consumers,
Yeah.
it doesn't grow the market. Like, I think like these are the kind of things that have made the whole Eurorack thing kind of explode,
Mm-hmm.
pedals too, right? Sharing information,
That's right.
you know. Okay. Hey, so anyway, that was kind of a digression there, but should we wrap it up?
Sure. Yeah. Unless you want to tell us what you're going to be working on this week.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know what I'm going to work on, but you know what? I got this thing finally in the mail. This is the Behringer Super Fuzz.
Oh, cool.
So it was like 25 bucks for, it's like a copy of the Boss FZ2, I think.
It looks brand new. Is it?
It is. I haven't even plugged it in yet.
Okay.
I just got
Yeah.
it in the mail. Just here's
25
the
bucks
box.
for a super fuzz. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. It's like a weirdo octave fuzz or something. So I thought I'd try it out, Um, plus like the Boss, like that FZ2 is really hard to get. You can get like the FZ3s and the FZ5s or whatever the other later ones are, but the early one is hard to get. So then I was like, Behringer makes
Right.
one for 25 bucks. People
Well,
like they rag on Behringer, like, and I kind of feel like it's kind of unfair because, on the other hand, people like the boutique guys are making copies of like tube screamers and they're doing new things. They're not like duplicating it. I think some people are, same thing with the Big Muff. People have taken Big Muff, and there's a lot of small companies that just make the perfect optimized green Russian Big Muff. But like that's saying I'm going to copy the green Russian Big Muff exactly.
mm-hmm.
Right. And nobody's complaining that a small company like Ren and Cuff is doing that. Right. Right. But then they'll complain like Behringer, a big company. And I think Behringer actually does some cool stuff because they make a lot of these chips that are not made anymore. So they're producing like these bucket brigade delay chips and things like that, which they can do it because they're a company and they have the scale, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the pickups. Like everybody's like, wow, my small company's making the copy of the 57 patent applied for, PAF humbucker, right? But nobody's saying like, hey, you're ripping off Gibson, but Gibson isn't even making that anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Behringer. I just bought a Behringer mixer, and it was the one I could afford. So
Oh, really? What would you get?
oh, I don't know. It's just a little, it's like a Y02B or something,
Huh?
or 802.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a little,
How many channels is it?
it's 4 channels.
Okay. Dude, we got to talk about that because I was thinking about buying a new mixer because I have this Mackie, but it's really big. It's like this big on my desk. And I was like, and I don't, it's got like 12 channels or something, but I only ever use like 4, so
Uh,
like, I was like, maybe I can get a small mixer that just has 4 channels on it.
yeah, no, mine's called a Xenix. It's XENYX 802, and it's like this big.
Xenix 802.
Yeah,
I'm going to go look that up. Oh, how big is it?
it's like this big.
Wow, that's great.
It's very tiny.
Is it cheap? Looks like
Yeah.
less than $100.
Oh yeah, I think it was like $50 or something.
Huh. Yeah, I might have to look into one of those, right?
I haven't plugged mine in. I just played my synthesizer through an amp, but um, eventually I'll get around to. I got to clean um, my desk and make room for everything. I got some monitors, and I have to make some cables and get ready to put everything together in a efficient way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
cool.
yeah, I've
Okay.
got a
Well,
lot
let's
more to
call
do.
it let's call it a day. I don't know what I'm going to work on this week, but maybe I'll play with the Super Fuzz, right?
Cool. Yeah, you can surprise us next week with all of the things that you've achieved.
Yeah, hopefully there's something on the list, right? Yeah.
I have
So
no doubt
anyway,
of it.
yeah. Okay, cool. Let's call it a day. You want to sign off there?
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Please let us know what you think about the future of pickups. If you have any experience with these these alternative or these kind of new kinds of pickups. I'd love to hear what you think of it. And if there are any other designs out there that we didn't touch on, I'd love to see some links or some names. And again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.